Welcome to the March edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Coming up in the next half hour, we'll hear from a longtime Oakdale City Council member who is leaving politics after a 20-year career. We'll also find out a great way to stay in shape during these cold winter months. All that and more is straight ahead on Northeast Journal. Hello everyone and welcome to the March edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Every month on Northeast Journal, we give you an inside look at the people and places that make up the Northeast section of the Twin Cities. Recently, Frank Orsello, who hosts the Oakdale Update program that can also be seen on our channel, interviewed Lori Pulkrabek. Lori served on the Oakdale City Council for 20 years before deciding to not run for re-election this past fall. She's also the chair of the Ramsey Washington Suburban Cable Commission. Here's Frank's interview with Lori in its entirety.
After 20 years in Oakdale politics, Lori Pulkrabek decided last year to not run for re-election for City Council. Lori is here today to talk about her political career in Oakdale. Lori, thank you for joining us again. I think you've been on here about 4 or 5 times at least, haven't you?
Probably,
At least that. So 20 years.
Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I want to get into that later because I remember interviewing you 20 years ago. I mean, that's how long we've both been here.
Yes.
Anyway, but let's start out. Before you announced your retirement, what did you do for a living? What's your background?
Oh, well, excuse me. I grew up in North Branch, Minnesota, which is about 15 minutes north of Forest Lake, and attended college at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis and graduated there with a degree in marketing, speech communication, and psychology.
Oh, sweet.
And then I went into my first job out of college was in marketing for a manufacturing company in St. Paul, and I was there for about 9 years.
Okay.
And then following that position, I worked for CTV North Suburbs, which is a community media center in Roseville, and I was there for just shy of 14
That's
years.
cable TV.
Correct, yes,
Cable
in a different
TV.
area.
What did you
Yes.
call it?
CTV.
CTV, okay.
Yes.
All right, but it's involved with this cable business too, right?
It's similar, just covering a different area.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. All right, so then how did you get into politics along the way?
Well, I was married back in the day to Bill Pulkrabek, who served one term as mayor of Oakdale. And that was really my first exposure to city government and local politics. And in both campaigning with him and watching him serve over those 4 years, I realized just how much you can accomplish at the city level and grew a real interest in city government. So when he was done at the city level and decided to move on to the county level, I threw my hat in the ring. And I'll say too that one thing that can be fairly daunting about politics is the campaigning piece.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, I'd already been out door knocking and lit dropping and putting up signs for Bill.
Yes.
So I had that experience, which was extremely helpful. And back in the day, as you may recall, there were a lot of candidates for city council. I think the first couple times I ran, there was 11 at one point, 14 another time. So there was so much competition. So the campaign piece was really important.
Absolutely. So then, now Bill was not the mayor when you ran, correct?
Correct. No, he was
had
done.
already moved on. Okay.
Correct, yes.
So this is, you were 20, well, Bill was 24 when he was elected, correct?
Correct,
And
yes.
you were 26 when you were elected.
That is correct, yes.
You were just a youngster.
I know. I don't know where the time went.
Were you a little nervous about that? I mean, that was way back in 1998. So were you a little nervous about getting on there?
I was, yes. I was a new a fairly new homeowner, and yes, you're never quite sure, what people will think of you initially, but hopefully over time they realize that you're serious and you're willing to put in the time and effort.
Well, I know that one of the things, Bill was a very good mayor. He did a lot of good things. He was very dedicated.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people voted for you because they said, well, you know, she can't be that far off if her husband was as good as he was. And
Yes.
I'm sincere about that.
Yes.
You know, I'm involved with the people here. But so what was it like being so young when you were on the council?
Oh gosh, it was really a learning experience. I did a lot of listening and a lot of asking questions, because a number of the people, all of the people on the council at that time had more experience than I did.
They were very
so,
old too, weren't they?
well, I don't know if I would
Well,
say
they were
that.
older people.
More
I mean, they were-
experienced.
yeah, more
Yeah,
experienced.
definitely more experienced. And they
absolutely.
were so welcoming to me,
Sure.
and very patient in answering my questions. And I have had the pleasure of serving with the most amazing council members and mayors over the years.
You know, I'm trying to think, who was the mayor when you were elected?
Carmen Serac.
Carmen Serac.
Yeah.
So he's been around 20 years too, almost. Oh, he was 20 years, wasn't he?
Through both his time on the city council and as mayor, I think he
It
was
was 20, at least
over
20.
20.
Over 20
Yes,
years,
yeah.
Well, you couldn't have asked for a better mentor working with him, huh?
he was amazing.
Exactly,
Yes.
which is wonderful.
Yes.
But the one thing about Carmen Serac, he knew how to run a meeting, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
You were in and out of there, and you got everything done, correct?
Yes, clear, concise,
Absolutely.
wonderful. Yes.
Oh boy, I tell you, when I run meetings, I live by his mantra there.
I love
Okay,
that.
so anyway, I remember interviewing you 20 years ago,
Yes.
and you were just a youngster, and I was a lot younger too, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
How have you matured and changed over the years? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've definitely gained confidence with experience, in that now I have experienced a lot of the
Sure.
things that have gone on in the city, obviously, over the last 20 years, whereas before I was still learning so much and just trying to take it all in. And so I'm definitely more confident now.
Sure. You know what? When I interviewed you 20 years ago, you were nervous.
Yes.
And I was new on this job too. So I like to look at a tape of that sometime and see how two
Yes.
novices, going head to head here.
Right.
Okay. So at the time when you were elected, the population of Oakdale was probably about 20,000 or so. What do you remember about the area? The terrain and that kind of thing, farm fields and that kind of.
You know, there weren't a lot of farm fields at that time. The residentially zoned property was fairly developed by the time that I got into office. But there was still a good amount of commercial property to be developed. So that was more so the focus in my time on the council.
So Oakdale is it's laid out old. I mean, it's there's complexes here, there, and there, and a little commercial here or there. So does that create a problem? I mean, we don't really have a downtown per se. So does that create a problem? Did it create a problem while you were on the council?
You know, I wouldn't call it a problem. It's just you have to choose an area to somewhat make a downtown and hold events. For example, if you have a downtown, that's an easy decision to hold events. Whereas when you don't have one, you have to be a little more creative. But yeah, we can obviously hold events at Walton Park during the summer, and we have a number of great businesses that we can utilize in the colder months.
Okay.
And we have the Discovery Center, of
Absolutely.
course, which is
That's
amazing.
Right. So how do you read the people in Oakdale? What do you think of the people in Oakdale?
The people in Oakdale are the best. I mean, I'm a bit biased, I will admit this, but you know, what has surprised me over the years is that often when I would get phone calls, our residents would say, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you,"
Oh,
but
really?
I would say, "You are not bothering me. This is a part of the job, and I want to hear from you." I think the worst thing that could happen if there is something that you have a concern about. The worst thing would be if you don't
Didn't say
share
anything,
that
yeah.
opinion.
Maybe talk to your neighbors about how angry you are.
Right, no, and so you 100% should talk with the city council members, and I was always appreciative to hear from people. And so our residents are just very respectful.
Good. So how about at meetings too? Did you ever have any problems at meetings with irate citizens?
Not really,
remember.
honestly.
I don't remember any.
People, by and large, have been very respectful. And if I could speak to our meetings, one thing that I'm extremely proud of in Oakdale is the political climate, in that in some of our neighboring cities, I'll say on three sides of Oakdale, in the news we've heard of disputes and arguments and fights in some cases. And in Oakdale, we just have this climate that is very respectful and professional, and people can agree to disagree and move on to the next issue. And it's just fantastic in that regard.
And that is, I can't remember if it was ever bad, like some of our communities, local communities.
It's certainly not in the 20 years that I've been there.
Absolutely, absolutely. We never hit the papers for bad stuff.
No.
We get in the paper, it's good stuff, right?
Yes, yeah, and in fact, when I read about the things that some of our neighboring cities are dealing with, I can't even imagine.
Honest to
It's
God.
so far removed from
Absolutely.
what we have in Oakdale, and I'm so appreciative
Absolutely.
of that. And also, I think that has caused a number of us to stay longer, because if you're in a climate where there's name calling, for example, people don't want to stay. But we don't have any of that, which means we have longevity on the council.
Absolutely. And that is so good. And you're right about that. A lot of people have been on the council forever. And that's good. And they're welcomed and they're doing very good. Okay, so I'm going to mention a couple of the projects that were done while you were on the council, which are, I mean, they defined Oakdale. And we're going to start out with the Hy-Vee project up on, so I want to go through about 4 of them, so if you,
Great.
we're moving on here.
Okay.
Okay, so talk about Hy-Vee.
Okay. Well, this is probably my favorite project to talk about, in that it took a long time, but I think it had the greatest impact in our community. Back in 2008, the council started talking about, developers keep coming and going and trying to work with the landowner of the Oakdale Mall at that time, who was a landlord out of California, and it was simply a tax write-off for him. And the fact that it was deteriorating and honestly an eyesore for our community didn't matter to that individual. And so we tried to help private investors come in and redevelop it. Didn't work. And finally, we made the decision to purchase it as a city, which was not something that we wanted to do, but something we felt we had to do to get the site redeveloped. So, like I said, we started talking about it in 2008. 2010, we had a purchase agreement. 2011, the purchase was finalized, and then we demolished the mall, which again was an eyesore and was at one of the major entryways to our community, such a prime spot.
Everybody saw it.
Yes, and everybody had an opinion about the Oakdale Mall, not a positive one.
Sure.
In the later years. And so we demolished it. We worked with a developer who then sold the sites to private companies. And what we have there now is like night and day difference from what was there. And so now we have Hy-Vee, which is phenomenal. We have the Waters Senior Living, we have Hardee's, we have a gas station and a Starbucks, and it, again, is night and day. And that redevelopment then spurred redevelopment across 10th Street. So then there's a new Cub Foods there, and they upgraded their property. And so what it looks like now as compared to what it looked like back when the mall was there, it's dramatically different.
There was some pushback on Oakdale getting involved in real estate. I have talked to a lot of people about that. Getting involved in real estate, but in the grand scheme of things, and let's give Craig Waldron, our city administrator at the time, give him
Yes.
all kinds of credit for this. He really led the charge, didn't he?
He absolutely did. And Craig and of course Carmen, who was mayor at the
Yes.
time as well, they did an amazing job in making this all
Making it
finally happen.
Absolutely. And I remember Craig telling me too that once they even, once the paper, once we finally bought that,
Yeah.
we already collected $1 million in back taxes because he hadn't paid the taxes.
That is
and
correct.
the city of Oakdale got a big lump of that, right?
That is correct.
So it was
Yeah.
just such a win-win.
It really was. And that's, I think, again, the project I'm most proud of in that it
Absolutely.
made the biggest difference for our community.
I think so too, and I think Craig is probably pretty proud of that one too.
I would
And then
agree.
another one I want to touch on is, in this one, I live up in the north end of Oakdale, so
Yeah.
I've seen it from the bottom to the way it is now. And that would be the Red Oak Preserve up at the north end on 50th
Yes.
Street. So tell us about that one.
All right. Well, that was a project that a number of years ago that we worked on with Washington County. It was a mobile home park and a deteriorating one at that. And the infrastructure in particular was getting quite bad, and to the point at which it just wasn't cost effective to run it any longer. And so we worked with the county and redeveloped the entire property. And what actually went in there is some senior housing, a lot of market rate single family homes,
Sure.
and then some townhomes constructed by Habitat for Humanity.
So how was, what was the, you were working with the county on that one?
Correct.
So what was our horse in the race on that one? What did we have?
Our horse in the race is
Did we have money involved in this? Did we put money into it?
we put some, and I apologize, I don't recall the details at this point in that it was probably 10 plus years ago.
Yes.
But yes, we did put some money into it, but what we got out of it in the end was so much more than what we put in because it wasn't generating property taxes. And a number of the homes were vacant. And also, I want to mention in working with Habitat for Humanity, they actually made a special allowance for us to allow some of the former residents who had lived in the park
Really?
to move into their homes if they would choose to do so.
That's great.
Which again was something they hadn't done in the past, so they
Sure.
made that special allowance for us.
Every once in a while I drive through there when it was the trailer houses and all that. It was the epitome of old and worn
Yeah.
out. It was spooky in there. It was so bad. It was
Yeah.
spooky. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
Oh my goodness,
yes.
that was spooky.
Another project that made quite a difference.
Oh, absolutely. And okay, one other thing is I want to talk about the water filtration system
Yes.
that 3M put in for us. Okay,
Yes.
tell us about that.
All right. Well, back in 2004, 2005, the discovery of PFCs in some of the wells came up for us as a city. And actually, I think it started out as one well and then two. And we realized that we needed to do something immediately. So, and I'm very proud of the way that this was handled. We didn't point fingers. We simply decided to talk with 3M to find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so within the year, we had worked out an agreement with 3M to construct a water filtration system in Oakdale, which then served both of those wells and filtered the water. And I just think that that ability to work with them rather than assigning blame was the key in getting it done quickly. And in talking with people from neighboring cities who asked how we got that done so quickly and that years later they were still trying to accomplish that, I said, it's about just wanting a solution.
Absolutely. It worked out so well. And they were very amiable, weren't they?
They were, and they are
So-
still, not only
still
did they plan, construct, but they're maintaining the system as well. And so they're still paying the costs to operate that facility.
Sit down, get together with them and get the problem taken
Just
care
get
of.
it done. Get it done. It's not about assigning blame. Just get it done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you're going to have more time than you know what to do with, What are you going to do? We got anything lined up? Got any plans going?
You know, I look at this time in my life as an opportunity to try new things. You know, for the longest time, well, for 20 years, I've had a full-time job and the council part-time job. So, you know, I've not had much free time. So this is my opportunity to venture out a bit and try new things. And in fact, I will mention that I applied for the Met Council to serve as a representative for District 11, and I'm a finalist in that process. So yeah, I have interviews coming up next week.
Is this Nora Slowik's?
Yes, she was selected as the chair.
Yes, yes.
Yep, and then each district applied, and then the nominating committee chose 5 finalists, and those finalists then go on to the interview process, which again, I will be doing next week. So that's
good luck on
one
that one.
opportunity.
Would you like to do?
I would like to do that. It's because I love planning from the local level, and that is doing the same thing but from a regional perspective for the Twin Cities area, and I think that would be so fascinating.
Oh, good. I hope you get it.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you've got the experience. I hope. Well, of course, I was looking at all the people that were appointed, and you know, the governor, the new governor, and all that. Very talented people.
Absolutely, yes.
And I interviewed our superintendent, Christine, last night, and the lady who's coming back to run the state education. She is top drawer. I mean, she is wonderful. So So you got a lot of competition out there.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And regardless of what happens, it's a fascinating process to go through.
Good for you. Good
Thank
for you.
you.
Well, listen, we are about out of time, and I just want to thank you, honest to God. Hey, but Lori, I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
You and I go back a lot of years.
We do, yes.
You know, you've been a good friend, and you know, and you've supported our. You know, I'm very active in the chamber and the EDC and all the other stuff, and you've been so very helpful to us in all these years. And I just wish you the very best. Okay.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, you bet.
Oh, what's this?
We're almost out of time, but before we go, here's a look at a Ramsey County Library program that is hoping to help caregivers who have a loved one with dementia or memory loss. Caring for a loved one with memory loss comes with many challenges. The Ramsey County Library is trying to make things a little easier for caregivers with their new Memory Minder kits.
So often people maybe won't visit someone like a relative with Alzheimer's because they don't know what to say. You know, the person doesn't recognize them. It's really hard interaction. And so this provides a way for people to have a pleasant interaction together based on what's in the bag.
The Memory Minder kits contain a variety of materials to help caregivers connect with those suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. Shoreview Library Branch Manager Carol Jackson tells us what's inside the kits.
They consist of a book that has large, beautiful pictures and then maybe a few little conversational prompts. It comes with an activity like a puzzle or maybe a modified card game or conversation cards, or for the ones that are very low functioning, maybe just like a manual activity like lacing something together. They include a CD because so often music is one of the things people really remember and stays with them. And then it also includes a book called The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia, which is a fantastic, simple book with great strategies on how to, you know, have really great interactions with people with Alzheimer's.
The kits are divided into high, middle, and low activity levels. Jackson says the Memory Minder kits are the first of their kind in a library nationwide. and the response so far has been tremendous.
It's really been so lovely because our display is right next to the reference desk. So I see somebody coming up and they're looking, and I'm like, and I tell them about the kit, and I had a woman say to me, I just feel so refreshed knowing this is here.
The Memory Minder kits were created through a joint collaboration between the Ramsey County Library and the Roseville Alzheimer and Dementia Community Action Team. The kits are available at both the Shoreview and Roseville libraries, but can also be requested to check out at any Ramsey County Library branch. For more information, visit the library's website at rclreads.com. If you're looking for an indoor sport to keep you in shape during the winter, then give pickleball a try. There are courts and leagues all over the metro. Here's a look at pickleball in Matamidi. A fast-paced racket sport is sweeping the nation. Pickleball, which combines elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong, is proving to be popular across the Twin Cities, including the Matamidi District Education Center. Gary Christensen and his friends are familiar faces at the center every week.
There's 3 of us that play golf during the summer, and that doesn't work so well in the winter. So they had a pickleball clinic, and somebody saw it and said, let's go to that. So we thought, let's find out what it's about, and so we signed up for the clinic, and we've been playing since the end of November.
Community Ed Director Kathy Weiland started getting requests for pickleball and realized the district center had a perfect space for it.
It's a nice use of an existing space and gives people some exercise and gets them into the doors. We like people to come in and use the district facilities, so it's great.
Here's why some of the other regulars love playing pickleball in Matamidi.
It's fairly easy to learn. It takes a little, I mean, you have to play a lot to get better at it, but it's just, it's hard to take it real seriously. It's just, you just have fun, and it's just kind of a good way. You're active, and we probably get as much exercise laughing when we're playing as we do playing pickleball.
Gets you moving, you know, and at my age, we don't do a lot of that. And so now we're running and stopping, and, you know, and that's so good for us at my age anyway. Doing this exercise is just outstanding, I think. It's just fun.
Pickleball can be played as singles or doubles, and the games move quickly. Matamidi's Ron Dockery encourages anyone looking to stay active to give it a try.
Just get out and move. It's a fun sport. You don't have to be a super athlete. You don't have to be in super condition. You can play whatever you want to play. And it's a sport that you get gradually into. I mean, you can get aggressive if you want, but it's a fun sport for anyone.
Visit the district center in Matamidi for more information about pickleball. Other communities in the area, including White Bear Lake and Oakdale, also have courts for pickleball. That's all we have time for on this month's show. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again next month for another edition of Northeast Journal.